Hello everybody, I am Khanam and in this tutorial we will learn about async await. Okay, we will understand what is this and why these are useful. Okay, before learning async await, you have to know the basics of promises and also you have to know how to fetch the data from API. Okay, these two topics I have already uploaded these videos in my channel. If you want, you can refer that one and you can study about async await. Okay, if you know the basics of promises and how to fetch the data from the API, then it becomes easy to understand. Now in this, using async await, we are going to fetch GitHub users data and we are going to make a project on this. You can see here, I am fetching this data from the GitHub. Okay, this using this API, I will be fetching this data. If I just inspect this one, you can see here it's responsive. And in my console, if I show you, I am getting this response and also I am getting this array. Okay, now we are going to make this project and we will understand why async and await is useful. And also you have to know promises and how to fetch the data. If you don't know how to fetch the data, I will be explaining you in this tutorial. But you have to know at least the basics of promises to understand why we are using async and await. Now you can see here I have this definition. Why we are using async and await is it is a special syntax to work with promises in more comfortable way, which is called as async and await. Okay, it is very easy to understand the concept. Once you know the promises, then async and await is very useful and it is very easy to understand. Okay, now let's get started into the code. I'll just open my VS Code editor. Now inside this, if I show you, I have this index.html file and inside this I have changed my title. I have one h1 tag and here I have one diff container which is having the id as root. As of now, I'll just remove this one and here you can see I have linked my JavaScript file here. Now if I open my project, you can see this is my project where I have this heading here. Okay, this one async await, this heading whatever I have written, and here I have just given inline styling. Okay, in this file we are just going to understand the concept of async and await and later on we will be doing the project on this. Now I have just opened my console here. Now you can see we are going to work on this. I'll just come to script.js and inside this I have written some basic definitions, okay, so that it will be useful. First we are going to write normal function. I'll just write one function here. I'll be giving function name as my function, okay, so that we can get to know where we have to put that async and await keywords. Now this function will return, I'll just give here console.log and I just want to print some data. I'll just come to index.html. I'll copy this text from here and here I'll be pasting that one. I'll save this. Now if I refresh my browser, now if I just refresh this one and now if I show you, I don't have anything. Okay, I'll just adjust this one now. I'll just bring on my right side. Now if you see here, I don't have anything in my console, okay, because I have not called the function yet. I'll be calling the function here. I'll save this. Now if I refresh my project, you can see in my console I'm having this async and await as my output. This is the normal function we were using. Now after ES6 we are using arrow function, that is fat arrow function. Instead of this you just have to replace like that. Okay, now we are not going to see fat arrow function. Okay, this is the normal function and we used to call this function to execute whatever output we are having inside this function. Okay, now using async and await we are going to define the function. Okay, you can see here I have this definition for async function. Async keyword, it must be placed before a function, which means that I'll copy this entire function from here and here I'll be pasting that one. I'll just uncomment this entire thing. Now you can see here async keyword, it must be placed before a function. Now this is my function and this keyword should be placed before my function here. Okay, this keyword should be placed before my function. And if you see here, the word async before a function means only one simple thing. A function always returns a promise. Okay, this entire thing, it is going to return a promise and promise is nothing but either you are going to resolve the promise or you are not going to resolve the promise, which means that you will fulfill the promise or you are not fulfilling the promise. If you fulfill the promise, we have resolve function. If you don't fulfill the promise, we have reject function. Okay, once we fulfill the promise, to display the data of our promise, we have then method for our resolve, and to display some error, we have catch method for our reject. Okay, this is how promise works. Okay, this simply means that it is going to return a promise, which means that either it will be fulfilled or it will not be fulfilled. Either it will be solved or it will be rejected. Now whatever data, whatever output you are getting inside this function, that will be wrapped in a resolve promise automatically, which means that it is just assuming that it will resolve the promise, which means that you are fulfilling the promise and it will wrap all the data inside that resolve method. Okay, now we are having this function, and this function is nothing but this function is returning our promise. I'll just save this one now. Now if I refresh this, you can see I'm having the same output. Now then, what is the difference between our normal function and this async await function? Okay, the difference is this function is returning us the value here. Okay, this whatever I am getting, this is the value it is returning, but this is returning a promise. We have already seen in our promise video that if the function is resolved, that means we have fulfilled the promise. To display the data of a resolve, we have then method. So instead of this returning the value, I'll just create one variable here and I'll give my variable name as sentence. You can give any name here. I'll be writing here promise. Promise is resolved. I'll change the spelling. Promise is resolved. Inside this function, I am just returning the promise. Here I have just created one variable and this is the promise in resolved state. You can see my promise will be in resolved state. So I am just assuming that I have fulfilled the promise. Now to call the resolve function, we have this then. To display the data of a resolve, we have then method, and inside this I'll just pass this alert. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see in my alert I am getting this page says undefined, because I am not returning anything here. I'll just return here, return, and I'll just return this sentence. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see I'm getting this promise is resolved. Okay, whatever text I am passing here, I'm just storing that inside this sentence variable and I'm just returning that one. Now here when I'm calling this function, I'm just returning this then, which means that my promise is resolved, and inside then I'm passing this alert. Okay, in this alert all the data whatever I am having here, that will be stored. Now instead of this, if I just write here console.log, now inside console.log all the data will be stored, and in my console I'll be getting the output. I'll just refresh this one. Now you can see I'll be getting the output in my console. Okay, this then method is used to get the data of my resolve method, and that will be printed. Okay, this is the basic difference between our normal function and our async function. We have seen that it will return a promise and all the values will be wrapped in resolved promise automatically. Now instead of writing this one, okay, instead of writing this, we could explicitly return a promise which would be the same. Okay, we will be getting the same output, but we can explicitly return the promise. Now we will see how to do that one. Okay, before my function I just have to write this async keyword, and here I'll be defining my function. I'll give my function name as my function. You can give any name here. Inside this function directly I'll be returning promise, so I'll just write here promise, and all the functions and all the output will be wrapped inside resolve. So I'll be using this resolve. Inside this I'll just pass this text here, whatever I'm having here. I'll just copy this one and here I'll be pasting that one. Okay, this is the same way we are just modifying this one. Instead of writing this, I'm just returning the promise, and inside resolve I'm passing this data. Now to print this data, we have to write this one. We have to call this function, and using then method, whatever data I am having inside this resolve, that will be printed in my console. I'll just comment this now. I'll save this. Now I have this output. I'll just refresh this one. You can see I'll be getting the same thing. Promise is resolved. Okay. Either you can write like this or you can write like this, but this is more specific because we will understand this. Using this async function, we are returning our promise, and using this then method, we are printing the data of a resolve. Okay, this is how we are going to write. I would suggest to use this one. I'll just give here VVV so that we can get to know whether we are getting the output or not. Now you can see I'll be getting the output. Okay, I'll just save this now. I'll just comment this. Now we have this await keyword. Now we will see what is this await keyword and where it is useful and where we have to use this one. Okay, you can see here it works only inside this async functions. Okay, which means that it is not going to work inside my normal function. If I use inside my normal function, I'll be getting an error. It should be worked only inside async functions. and it will tell we have to wait until we resolve a promise. And we have already seen that async function is going to return a promise, and this await keyword will tell us until you fetch the data. If you are trying to fetch the data from the API, if it is taking some time to display the data, it will tell, this await keyword will tell us to wait, okay, until the promise is resolved. Until you get the output, this will wait and the promise will be resolved and the data will be displayed to you. Okay, now I have written here, we can't use this await functions inside our regular functions or else we will be getting an error. Now here we will see an example of await. I'll just define my function. I'll be writing this async keyword, and here I'll be writing this function. You can use arrow function as well. I'll give my function name as my function. Inside this function, I'll be creating new promise. I'll just create one variable. I'll give my variable name as promise. Inside this, I'll just create new promise here. New promise, and this promise will be having one executable function, and inside this function we have two arguments, that is a resolve and reject. Okay, we have already seen this completely about promises in our tutorial, in our previous tutorial. Okay, promises will be having this executable function. This executable function will take two arguments, resolve and reject. Resolve is when you fulfill the promise and reject is when you don't fulfill the promise. To display the data of resolve, we have then method, and to display the data of reject, we have catch method. Now inside this function, I'll be giving this set timeout, and here I'll just, okay, I have got the syntax here. Here I'm using this fat arrow function. Okay, you can give your function name as well, and here I'll just set the time as 2000, which means that 2 seconds. After 2 seconds, I want to display the data. I'm just setting the time. I'm just telling this one, after 2 seconds, whatever function I'm having, just display the data here. Inside this function, I just want to display this resolve. Resolve, and inside this I'll be passing some text. I'll be writing this, I am async and await keyword. I'll just write this one. Now inside this set timeout interval, I'm just passing this resolve, which means that I am fulfilling the promise, and here I'm just passing this text after 2 seconds. Now to display this resolve data, we have to use then method. Only then our output will be displayed. So before that, we have to use this await keyword. Now inside this function, okay, once I come outside this set timeout, now here I'll be using this await keyword. I'll just give one variable. I'll just create one variable. Now inside this variable, I'll be passing this await keyword. I'm just telling that I have to wait for 2 seconds, so I'm just passing this one here, and this one, whatever you have created, whatever variable you are having, just pass this one here. Okay, I'm just creating the new promise here. Inside promise, I'm having this executable function. This function will be having two arguments, resolve and reject. Now inside this function, I'm just setting the timeout. After 2 seconds, I want to display this data. Okay, now once I come out of this set timeout function, I am having this, I'm just creating one variable result, and inside this I'm just passing this await keyword, which means that I'm telling that you have to wait until my promise has been resolved. Okay, now it is going to wait. This promise is having this data, it will wait. Now I'll just come here, I'll do console.log, and all the data will be stored inside this variable. I'll be passing this one here. I'll just copy this one, I'll be pasting it here, and here I'm just calling the function. Now I'll just refresh this. Now you can see after 2 seconds, whatever value I have passed inside my resolve, that I'll be getting here. Okay, I am async and await keyword. Okay, I'll just explain you. I'm calling this function here. This will go here. This will see this is async, and this function is going to return promise. Here I'm just creating new promise, and inside this promise I'm just passing this two arguments, resolve and reject. Now inside this function I'm just setting this set timeout, and here I'm telling after 2000, after 2 seconds, just print me this data. Okay, resolve data, which means that I am not having any error and my promise has been fulfilled. Now here I am just creating one variable, and inside this I am passing this await keyword, which is telling that until my promise is resolved, you have to wait. Okay, once I get all the data, I am just storing that inside my result variable, and in my console I am just printing this data, whatever I am having here, that I am printing. Okay, this is how we are going to use await keyword inside our functions. Now we will see what happens if we use await keyword in normal function. I'll just copy this entire thing. I'll just comment this one, and here I'll be pasting that one. Normal function is we don't have to write this async keyword. Now this will be my normal function. Inside this I'm just creating new promise, and here I have passed this resolve and just passing the same thing, result. Now I'm just using this await in my normal function. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see I'll be getting an error. Await is only valid in async functions and the top level bodies of modules. Okay, we can't use await in normal functions. It will be valid only inside our async functions. If I use this async keyword here, if I just copy this one and if I paste it here, now you can see, by seeing this you can tell that this is my async function, and now inside this async function I can use this await. Now if I refresh this one, after 2 seconds I'll be getting the output without getting any error. You can see this is how await is useful. I'll just remove this keyword. I'll be commenting this one now. Now next we have reading API data. Now we will see how to read the API data using this await and async. Okay, I'll just declare function. I'll just use this async. I'll be writing this function. I'll give my function name as my function. I'm writing it again and again because so that it can go, so that we get practice. Now inside this I'll just create one variable. I'll give my variable name as response. Okay, here is equal to, I'll give this await, and I'm just fetching the API data, and inside this I'll just come to browser and you can search for, here I'm having this GitHub users. Previously we have seen fake store API. I'll just take that one, fake store API, or instead of that I'll just write here fake API. I'll just write fake API, and here you will be having this JSON placeholder. Click on this, and here inside this you will be having the link. Okay, this link, copy this link. I'll copy this one, and here I'll be pasting that link. If I enter, you can see I am having only one data. I'll just remove this keyword ID from here, 1. I'll refresh this. Now you can see I'm having this API data. Now I want to read this data using async and await. I'll just copy this API. I'll be pasting it here. Okay, now I'm just telling that wait till I fetch this data and then display. Now I'll just copy this one. Now if I just do console.log, I'll just paste that one, call the function here. I'll copy this one, and here I'll be pasting that one. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see here I'll be getting the response, and inside this response I'm having this data, status, body, everything will be having, and this is my URL. Now to access this, to get this data, now you can see here this data is in JSON format. Okay, because my name field is also enclosed in double quotes, which means that this data is in JSON format. So now I have to convert into object format. I'll just create one variable. I'll give my variable name as user object. I'll be giving user data. Inside this response is having all my data. I'll paste that one, and now I want to convert into object format. So for this also I have to pass await. Okay, because I'm converting this only, this data. I'll be writing this await keyword here. I'll save this. I'll just do console.log, and inside this I'll be passing this user data which is been converted to object now. I'll save this. Now if I just come here, now if I refresh this one, you can see I'll be getting 200 array of objects. Okay, 200, the length is 200, and I am having this array of objects inside this API. Okay, this is how we are going to access the data. We are going to read the API data. We are just going to write this async function name, and inside this you can give any variable name here. You have to write this await keyword, and using this fetch method you have to access this API link. You just have to paste the API link, whichever link you are having, and if you do console.response, this will be the data in JSON format. You have to convert this data into object format. So to convert this data into object format, we have this JSON method, and this is the function. Okay, this whatever data we are getting, we are converting into object format. So until it converts, we have to wait. So we are using this await keyword here, and I am storing all this data inside this variable. Now if I do console.log, I'll be getting all the data here inside my console. Whatever data I am having here, this complete 200 IDs, I'll be getting the data inside my console. Okay, this is how we are going to read API data. Okay, you can read any API data using only so much of lines. Okay, if you remove this console and if you just remove this console and save this, you will not be having any output, but you can print this data inside our browser as well. You can just give ID to one variable and you can print this data. Now we are going to see how to print the data in our project, but this is how we are going to read the data. I'll just comment this entire thing. Now next we have our project reading GitHub users data. Now we have here project. Before that we have only seen about resolve. Okay, we have only seen about resolve. We are just assuming that our promise is fulfilled and we are displaying the data. Now we will see if we get error when fetching the data, how to handle that one. Okay, I'll just create normal function. Okay, you can just implement this one using await and async. I'll just create normal function. I'll give my function name as load data. Inside this I'll be passing one argument. I'll just give here URL. Now inside this function I'll be returning this. I'll just return I want to fetch. I'll be writing this fetch method, and inside this I'll be passing this URL. I'll be giving the URL whenever I'm calling the function. Now here this fetch method, I'm just assuming that it has been resolved, so I'll be using this then method, and whatever data I'm having, that response, whatever response I'll be getting, that I have to convert into JSON format. Okay, before that I'll just check some conditions here. If whatever response I'm having, this response, I'll just paste that one here. Okay, this is how we are going to check in real life example as well. If my response status, if it is equal to 200, which means that I got my data successfully. If it is 200, then I want to return this response, whatever response I am having. I'll just paste it here and I'll be converting into object. Okay, we have already seen that whatever data we are getting from the API, that will be in JSON format. We have to convert into object format, so we are using this one. Okay, here I am just fetching the URL, that is my API, and here inside then, which means that my API is been resolved, I got the output. So I am printing using then. Inside this then I am just checking this condition in my response. If my response status, if it is equal to 200, I am just converting it into object. Else if it is not equal to 200, I will just throw an error, and using this new keyword I will be throwing an error. Okay, you don't have to worry about this. Here I will be throwing an error. I will just copy this response, I will be pasting it here, and whatever status code I am having, I just want to print that one. I'll save this. Before calling this function, I'll just come to my previous project here. I'll just uncomment this one. I'll just uncomment this. Now if I show you the output, you can see here inside this status I am having here 200, which means that I am getting the data successfully here. So here I am just taking the condition, if my status is 200, only then you convert this data, whatever I am having, convert into object, like this object. If I'm not having this status as 200, just show me this response dot status. Here I am having this response. Okay, this is my response dot status. Okay, I'll be getting the output here, whatever status I am having. Now I'll just comment this one. I'll just uncomment this entire thing. I'm just writing one function. Now inside this function I am fetching the API URL. I am assuming that I have resolved, and here I am just checking the condition. If my response status, if it is equal to 200, then convert the data into object format, else throw an error and just show me the status of this, whatever error I am having. If I am having 404, I'll be getting this page not found error. Be calling this function, I'll just copy this one, here I'll be pasting that one, and instead of this URL I'll just pass some random API, random link. I'll just write here fake API JSON, fake API, I'll just write some data here, fake API fetching data dot JSON. Okay, assume that this is my API. I'll just write here fetching. Now here if I get an error, I have to handle this using catch, and here I'll just give here alert. I'll save this. I'll refresh this one. Now you can see in my alert I'm getting the error, type error, failed to fetch. This is, I can't access this data, and it is telling me that it is type error and I can't fetch this data. Okay, this is how I'll be getting an error. Now instead of this API, if I give my API this one, which is having the data, I'll copy this one, and here I'll be pasting that one. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see I don't have any error, and also my output is not getting displayed because I have not consoled anything, but I don't have any error, which means that it is successfully accessed this API. Okay, now I'll be getting this response is equal to 200. Now instead of this, here I'll just do console.log. I'll just do here response. I'll save this. I'll just come here. Now if I refresh this one, you can see I'll be getting this response. Okay, without getting any error, I got the output. When you are working in bigger projects, then you have to write like this, and you have to check the status, and you have to display the data. If your status is 200, only then you have to display the data, or else you just have to throw an error. Okay, you have to handle this one using catch, and you have to throw this error. Okay, this is the simple example. You can just write here async, and you can just write here await. Now I'll just comment this one. Now next we will be working in our project. Okay, this is the project we are going to make using async and await, and how to fetch the API and how to fetch these GitHub users. I'll just inspect this one. Now you can see I have this output here. I'm just fetching this data. Now if I just come to my folder, I have already written the code. I'll just come here. I'll just comment this one because I'm getting error. I'll just refresh this. Now you can see I have all the data, I have response, I have this data, and just displaying in my browser here. Okay, now we will see how to display this one. Using this GitHub API link, GitHub users API link, this link will be having some restrictions. Okay, it just tells within 1 hour we can, exactly I don't know how many times we can use, but we can, if we reach the limit, the data will not be displayed and we will get an error. So you have to be very specific. Okay, don't refresh it again and again. Don't refresh your page again and again. Just write the code, and later on finally you just refresh it, and after 1 hour you can use this again. Okay, now we will see how to create this one, how to create this project. Now here I'll just create one folder. Now inside this I'll be creating one folder. I'll give my folder name as async await. Now inside this folder I'll be creating one file. I'll give my file name as index.html, and also I'll be giving this style.css, and here I'll create one more file. I'll give my file name as script.js. Now inside index.html, I'll just come to my project.html. I'll just copy this entire thing from here. I'll explain you this one. I'll paste it here. Now I have just written this basic boilerplate of HTML, and inside this I have changed my title. I have linked my CSS file here, and also inside my body I have this async await fetching GitHub users text. And here inside container I have just created one div which is having this container and ID is equal to root. Here inside this container I'll just create one div. I'll give the class name as cards, and inside this cards first I'll be giving this image, and inside this image link I'll just search for pixels.com, and inside this link, okay, you will be getting all the images which are completely free to use. I'll just search for nature. I'll just copy this link, and here I'll be pasting that link. Below this image I'll just write one h1, and for this I'll just write h1 heading, and I'll be writing here username. I'll save this. I'll just copy this path. I'll be closing this one now, and here I'll just paste the path. Now you can see I have this heading, I have this image, and I have this username. Okay, now we are going to style in this way. I'll just copy this cards, and here I'll be pasting that one 3-4 times. I'll be pasting that one. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see I'm having this output here. Now I'm not going to style this one. I'll just do Control B. I have already styled this one. I'll just copy this entire thing, and inside my style.css I'll be pasting that one. Okay, I'll just explain you what I have done here. Now inside index.html I have given the class name as title for my this heading. So for this I'm just giving this text align to be center, and for this container which is having all my cards, you can see all my cards are wrapped inside this container. and for this container I am just giving display to be flex so that it will come in horizontal row. Justify content space around and flex wrap to be wrap. In my smaller screen devices it should be wrapped. Now for my cards, for this cards, okay, this entire cards, for this also I am just giving display to be flex, justify content space between, align item center so that my image and my text will come in horizontal row. I am just giving padding, I am just doing the normal styling, so I have just written this one. And for my image I am giving the width as 30%, object fit to be contained so that my image will not be squeezed in my smaller screen devices. And I am just changing the H1 font size, I am just decreasing this one, I am giving the width to my H1, I am just given padding right. Here I have just written this basic media query so that it will be responsive in my smaller screen devices like this. All will come on top of each other. So I have just written this one, okay, the basic coding of CSS. Okay, so I am just not sending. If you want, you can just take the screenshot of this. Okay, you can take the screenshot of this. I'll just come here, and also you can take the screenshot of this, and also you can take this and you can give your own styling. Okay, now once we are done with this, I'll just come to my project here. Now if I refresh this one, you can see I'll be having this output. I have my first card, second card, third card, fourth and fifth. Now we will be fetching the data. I'll just come here. Here you have to write GitHub users API. I'll just open this first link. Okay, from here I'll just copy this link. Inside script.js, I'll be pasting that link. I'll just paste the link here, I'll just comment it out. Later on I am going to use this one. Now inside this we have to fetch the data. First we have to read the data from the API. So we have to define our function. I'll be using async function. I'll just use this async function. I'll just give my function name as GitHub users. I'll just give here get GitHub users. Inside this function, first I want to fetch the API data. I'll create one variable. I'll give my variable name as response, and here I'll be using this await keyword. I'm just telling it to wait until I get the data. And here using this fetch method, I'll be accessing my API link. Now this whatever link I'm having, I'll just paste that one here. I'll copy this, and here I'll be pasting that link. Now if I do console.log, I'll just do response here. I'll save this, and here I'll be calling this function. I'll copy this one, and here I'll be pasting that one. I'm just calling the function here. I'll just refresh my project. I'll inspect this one. Now you can see in my console I'm just getting failed to load resources, file not found, projects.jc. Okay, I'll just come to index.html, and here I'll just write here script.js. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see I'll be getting this response, reference error S is not defined. Okay, we will fix this one, but you can see I got this response here. I got this response. Now we are going to convert this data into JSON format. I'll just remove this S from here. Now here I'll be creating one more variable. I'll give my variable name as data, and inside this I'll be passing this await keyword. And here I want to convert this whatever response I'm having, I want to convert into JSON format. I'll be writing this .json. If do console log, I'll just pass this data here. I'll save this. Now if I show you the output, you can see here I'm getting array of 30 data. You can see I got this data here. Now I want to display this data in my browser. So to display the data, here whatever card I am having, I'll just close this style.css. Now this is my array. You can see here this is my array of objects. To access this particular ID, now this is the data which is holding all the values. Now if I just do here console.log data, I want to get 0th index, whatever I am having here. I just want this. I'll just copy this one avatar URL, and here I'll be pasting that one. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see here I am getting this link, okay, which is stored inside this 0th index link. Okay, I got this link as my output. Okay, to access this objects data, we have to use this dot, and we have to access the property, and this is my array. Now I want to store all the data in my browser. Okay, we have already seen this using fetch method. Now we are going to see this in using await and async. Now here, to fetch all the data, we are going to use map method, and map method will be applied to two arrays. Now this is my array which is having all the data. I'll copy this one and here I'll be pasting that one. Now using map method, I want to access all the values. I'll just write here values. You can give any name for this argument, and inside this, here I'll just close the function, and this values will be having all the data now. First time it will be having 0th index data, second time it will be having first index data, third time it will be having second index data. Okay, it keeps on going like that. Now first time I'll be having this first data, so here I'll just create one variable. I'll give my variable name as a display. I'll just give here empty string. Now here I want to display all the data. Display is equal to, inside my backticks, I'll just come here, I'll copy this first, I'll just copy this card, and here I'll be pasting that card. Now instead of this image src, I'm just going to remove this source, and instead of this I'll be passing this values which is having all my data dot whatever image link, that is my image is in this avatar URL. I'll copy this one and here I'll be pasting that one. Okay, instead of this username, I just want to print the name. Okay, here I don't have name, I just have here login. Now if I just show you, you can see I have this login. I'll just copy this one and here I'll be pasting that one. First I'll write this values dot login. I'll just copy this, and inside this alt also I'm going to paste that one. I'll save this. Now if I come to my browser, now if I refresh this, I will not be having any effect here. I'll just come to index.html and I'm going to remove all the cards from here. I'll just remove this entire cards, and also I'll be removing this and this card. Okay, now I don't have anything inside my index.html. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see I don't have anything and my browser is empty now. Now this data, whatever I have written inside JavaScript, I have to display all the data here like this. I have to get directly from the API and it should be displayed like this. Now if I just close this one and if I show you, you can see all the data will be like this. Now we are going to access our this ID, root ID. I'll copy this one, and below this I'll be writing this document dot get element by ID, and inside this I'll be passing, I'll just paste that ID dot inner HTML, and I want to display this one. I'll just copy this and here I'll be pasting that one. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, I'm just getting here display is not defined. I'll just come here, I'll copy, I'll just bring it above, I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, you can see I'm having this last data of the user. If you see here, this user is at the end and I'm having only the last data. So to get all the data, you just have to write here plus and all the data will be added. This data, first I'll be having empty data plus this card, then again this card plus whatever new data, then again this card plus whatever new data I'm having. Now if I just refresh this one, you can see all the data of the users from that particular link, it got displayed here. Okay, this is how we are going to fetch the data, and we are just going to use this await and async keyword. Okay, async is nothing but it is going to return a promise, and await will tell us to wait. Okay, until we get the data, it will tell us to wait. Okay, this is how it is useful. Now if I just give here one more. Now here below this, I'll just write here some more lines, okay, so that we can understand in more better way. I'll be using this await keyword, and using this await keyword here, I'll just create one new promise here. I'll be writing this new promise, and inside this promise I'll be having this resolve and reject. I'll just write here resolve and reject. Now this resolve, now inside this one, I'll just set the timeout, and inside this function I'll just write here 2 seconds, and instead of this I just want to pass the resolve. I'll just write here resolve. I am just setting the timeout function to my resolve, and here I am just giving the time as 2 seconds. After 2 seconds I want to display the data. To display the data of resolve, we will be using then. Now as of now, I'll just do console.log. I'll just come out of this function. I'll be doing console.log and I'll be passing this all data is been displayed. All data is being displayed. I'll save this. Now if I refresh this one, first I'll be getting all the data, then after 2 seconds I'll be getting this output. All data is being displayed. Okay, this await keyword will tell me to wait, and I'm just creating new promise, and inside this I'm passing this resolve, which means that my data is been, my promise is been fulfilled, and here inside console I'm just printing this one. Okay, this is how we are going to work with async and await. This is very similar to fetching the data from the API. We are just adding these 2 keywords, async and await. Okay, if you know about promises and how to fetch the data, then this is very easy to understand. We have already seen the definition. This is very easy to understand and very easy to implement. Okay, that's all for today's tutorial. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.